I'm Paris again, Basil and Kennedy, if you never caught our names the first time. We are Base Consulting, and we're really excited to share our recommendation moving forward. Okay, so we can speak, act, expect, and the change, and keep the doors open. And we wanted to follow your vision and continue your vision moving forward. We understand keeping your doors open for all the women and children in the community is a big impact and an amazing thing your organization does, and we want to continue this legacy and make sure that everything that we provide for you is feasible and follows every step of the vision that you want to continue. And as we say again, we want to keep the doors open with a chain reaction on social media, and that's what we are going to provide for you today. So the three main problem IDs. Before we get into our recommendation, we want to take an analysis of your organization. And the first three main problem IDs we found was the intense and growing demand for your organization. We understand that a lot of individuals come to your organization and need housing, and we understand it's probably really difficult to turn away the women and children that you do have coming. And we understand that this is the main issue that we're looking at today. The secondary issues to that main one is the lack of funding. We understand anything and everything we do in today's age costs money, even if it is charitable. Moving forward is a lack of community awareness. We understand that a lot of women and children that are on the streets, they do not come forward. It doesn't, and we don't want to speculate that the women and children that are on the streets are on the streets. They could be house surfing, they could be with family members, they could be coming out of abusive relationships, and we want to take that into consideration with our recommendation. And we also want to raise awareness and find a solution for the lack of funding.
All right, so moving into an analysis of the external environment, there's some key factors that are really influencing your organization right now. So one of those being that, the main one being that there is an established and growing need for affordable housing across Regina and in Canada as a nation. This is clear, and this is what we're really trying to tackle today. Next we have, there's high violence, domestic violence rates, and the highest are in Saskatchewan. We've seen that through our statistics, and we know that this is a main factor for why so many women and children are being put into homes right now. And there's a low community awareness. That low community awareness that Paris touched on just now, being that we need to engage the community and have them involved in understanding what is happening around them and how these women are being influenced in their community. And lastly is the high vacancy rates in the housing market in Regina right now. So we have high vacancy, and those high vacancy rates and high rent. And low income individuals aren't able to afford to live in those houses right now. So that means that we need to meet this increase in demand. We need to do something that's going to help us. We need to educate the community, and we need to engage them in a way that's going to help them become part of our movement and help us instigate a change that's going to develop the YWCA in a positive way. So looking right into the YWCA as an organization, you have some key strengths that we think we can leverage to build a really sustainable solution in the long term. So the first is that you have a huge reach across Canada. You have locations in 9 provinces and 2 territories. This is really beneficial because you have the ability to go and see what your other locations have done. You have a network of resources and knowledge that you can go and pull from, and we can see what's worked and what hasn't. The next is that the outreach team, which is is one of the things that we want to build today, is that your outreach team is the most highly sought after program that you offer, and it's the one that's needing the most help right now. And lastly is that you have the affiliation right now of the world member of the Association of the World for the YWCA, which just gives you, again, more access to information and more access to resources. So what do we want to do with that? We want to keep leveraging those capabilities and build on the strengths, so that way we can really start to optimize your outreach team and have the most impact possible on your organization today.
So just to go back to a financial assessment, we just want to see where we're at today and right now. Currently in 2018, there was a surplus of 130,000, and in 2019, there was a surplus of 37,000. And we just wanted to take a look, and we currently are saying that your organization has a healthy balance sheet. You guys are breaking even close to, and also we did notice like a few discrepancies of the programs were taken out, we also noticed, but we understand that this will allow us to grow forward and keep the doors open for the rest of the women and children coming in the future. An interesting fact that we noticed within the balance sheet was also the fund development. We noticed that a lot of revenues were going out, a lot of expenses were coming out of the fund development, but not, we were in a current deficit of 11,000 under the funds development, and we wanted to leverage on this and focus on this aspect of our recommendation to grow this number, as currently this is taking away from your organization growing, and we want to make sure you can meet those demands moving forward, as we want to open the doors for all the women and children in the future.
All right, so as it was laid out in the case, there's 3 alternatives that you suggested to us. There's 3 ways that you guys have already kind of felt out and see that could be a potential for revamping your organization to continue growing in a positive direction. So we're going to take a look at each of those alternatives. The first being option 1, which was to do a co-development with a development company and the YWCA. This would involve a 50-50 partnership and a co-own, co-rent structure. We see that this could be beneficial, but it would be costly in the short run. The second option that you considered here was the dedicated lease agreement. So having the YWCA have a network of buildings, so that way we can lease those facilities. And so that would be the entire risk and liability would be on the YWCA. So how are we going to be able to mitigate that risk and move forward? And the third option was to go directly from the developers. So the developer would own the entire building, and we would just be renting directly from them at a low cost. So taking a look at the decision matrix here, we've kind of laid it out in terms of scalability. So that basically, we've defined scalability in terms of what we believe to be sustainable in the long run for your company, and what we see that there is an opportunity for growth. So the co-development program, we see that this could be scalable in terms of your ability to continue to build those locations. If you have the 50-50 partnership, we think that you could probably continue that partnership and leverage it in the future and potentially get more properties. The dedicated lease we see as a slightly less scalable, just in terms of the risk that's associated with it. Since the partner would be taking on the majority of the risk here, we see that they might not want to stay with us. What benefit does that provide them if our clients aren't able to pay for their rent and they're coming in late? We don't want to risk we don't see that being viable if they're not paying for their rent, and we don't see that being beneficial for the development company. And then lastly was the rent direct from developers. So we're going to rent straight from the organization we have. If we have access to a low income properties and rooms, we see that this could be really scalable. We can continue to grow it. It's not very expensive. We can go in there right now. It will not cost as much money as owning our own property, and we're not taking on as much of the risk associated with ownership. And the second criteria that we really wanted to kind of touch on today was the financial feasibility, because as Paris mentioned, that's one of your key issues that is driving your organization's inability to reach the capacity that it needs to. So that would be the co-development financial feasibility. Owning 50-50 in a new development is going to be tremendously expensive, and we need to reach as many people as we can right now, and that costs money. So maybe in the long term, putting that investment in would be beneficial, but right now, it's just not feasible. Second would be the dedicated lease. That's also going to be expensive. We see that there is risk associated with us not continuing to get the leasing options, and it's just, we don't think that it's going to be beneficial in the long run either. And lastly was the financial feasibility of the rent direct from developers. We see that this is obviously going to be the least costly alternative, since it really depends on how many people we're providing to the developer. So in the end, we decided to go with the third option. So the third option, we wanted to develop it in a way that is going to really inspire the community and get more people interested, so that way we can start expanding our reach and really targeting more of the population and getting everyone inspired, so that way you can really make a difference here. So our main recommendation is going to be hashtag keep the doors open. So it's going to be a social media campaign. The social media campaign is going to be designed to generate funds, so that way we can raise awareness in the community, so that way everyone's aware and inspired by what your organization is currently doing. What you do is amazing, but people don't know. And if people did know, they would be inspired and they would want to donate to you. So we think that by putting the hashtag keep the doors open through Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, when people can write and it's something that scares them, something that they've overcome in their life, something that they're going through right now, whether it be mental illness or just their personal life in general. We see that we all have things that scare us, we all have things that we've overcome, so let's all bond together and let's create a difference. Once we've created that awareness, we would like to develop the outreach program, and we'd like to develop the outreach program while also having the rent. Well, we're also doing the leasing through the company. So I'm going to pass it on to Basil, so we can see how that's going to move forward.
Awesome, thank you, Candy. So how are we going to keep the doors open? Are we going to implement this amazing recommendation that we really believe that can help the Young Women's Christian Association strive, become sustainable, and become successful and continue into the future? So the way we thought of to do this was to first have a board of directors meeting, get our thoughts together, see where we're at, what we need to work on, and essentially discuss the current situation and the current feasibilities. Where the WMCA is at, what is feasible, what are the cost associations with the recommendation. Second would be to discuss the innovative outreach solutions. We thought to do something new, something creative. We're in 2020, this is a new digital age. We want to do something that's fresh, something that can reach not only the people of Saskatchewan, but people outside of Saskatchewan. We wanted to create a recommendation that can be full circle and can connect with anybody who's facing issues, who's trying to break out of their circle. We want to set the tone for the most realistic approach. We want to do something that's feasible, that is fun, and can, again, reach a large community and a vast community, essentially. We want to approve the social media campaign and get government approval, essentially. For the social media campaign, posting pictures, posting videos of people's struggles, we want to make sure that it does get proper approval and everything is set in stone for this recommendation to get sent through. Develop the social media campaign. So what we wanted to do is focus on three main things: is hire this marketing team, implement search engine optimization strategies, and get contract news outlets, essentially. Hire the marketing team. These are the people who will be taking care of all the social media outlets and the platforms, taking care of the posting, making sure everything's running smoothly. We want to make sure we get a search engine optimization team, an SEO team, making sure that our topic is trending. We're making sure that if any of these posts are being shared among other sites, that they are on the top plate, they are trending amongst everyone on the internet. And then contracting news outlets. We want to make sure that we utilize and harness every single outlet out there to try and get our message across and make sure that we reach everybody and we essentially get the important message across. And create Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for the WMCA. Make sure that we are harnessing every single social media outlet and using it to the best of our ability. Partner with local universities to create a team of student ambassadors to make these initial posts. So we have the University of Regina. We want to create these student ambassador teams to get these initial posts going and to make sure that a young community can connect with a young community. We've seen in the case that a majority or a lot of these underprivileged women and children, they start becoming homeless at the age of 18 and under. And so we want to make sure, and what we thought is that by connecting them with these student ambassadors, they can be a little bit more of a touch. After, we would launch the campaign and have a press release. So we want to make sure that every single person gets aware of what's happening, aware of what we're trying to do, and especially because the YWCA has such a big effect on so many people in Saskatchewan. We want to make sure that this recommendation takes into full effect, essentially. So let's look at some cost implications, some key performance indicators, and some risk and mitigations. So looking at the cost, it would be about $20,000. And so looking at the cost of the $20,000, it would be for the marketing team, the SEO strategist, and all essentially launching the whole social media campaign. The key performance indicators, we thought a reasonable amount would be 1,000 shares and have about 300,000 donations. So what our plan was that from every single social media platform, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, for example, we'd set up a donation page and link it to all these pages. So every single person has a fast, easy access to these donation pages, and associated with the donation pages, we have created a proper link to basically get the message across as to where they're donating, what the importance of the donation would be, and exactly where their money is going, essentially. So we thought a risk of this would be during the development of the social media campaign, we would create a video. And a video, basically a powerful video, getting the message across, getting people's insights as to how drastic the situation is within the Regina area, and getting people's insights, interviewing people, and creating a video to try and get the whole message across. And it's, with any kind of social media campaign, there's always problems that come about. So we let a risk it be that some people might not feel comfortable, some people might feel offended with the different content that could be involved in the video. So a way to mitigate that essentially would be to have continuous revision of the content with the board of directors and the executives to make sure everything's on point, everyone feels comfortable with the content that we're posting, so on and so forth. Nice. Continuing the implementation plan, we want an executive plan for developers to purchase property. So going to this option 3 that we were talking about, we want to make sure, and we want to keep it consistent, that the Young Women's Christian Association has the least amount of risk possible in the situation. So working with developers, buying the property, and then leasing it to us, we're basically going to be providing clients to the developing properties, and essentially clients which are going to be utilizing their time wisely. We're going to be making good decisions, and we're going to be trying to be on track to create a better life for themselves and move out of this drastic situation that they're in. So essentially executing this plan for developers and making sure everything's in time and everything's in sync with these developers, and making sure all the contracts are correct and our option or recommendation works smoothly. Second would be to invest money from the campaign into this outreach program. So as mentioned in the case, the outreach program is one of the important things the YWCA is trying to work on. It's been mentioned more than once that the 80% success rate is something that they really feel proud of here. The 80% success rate of allowing these women, young children to come in, running them into this outreach program with counseling and such, and helping to make a better life for themselves. This is something that we definitely want to utilize and work with developers and basically prove that this is going to be a success. Hire more outreach workers and support staff. Continue to essentially grow this outreach success rate, and provide clients to the housing program, as I just mentioned before. Looking at a little bit of the cost of this, if we're adding on employers into this outreach program, there's going to be costs associated with it. We estimated it to be about $10,000. And so looking at a little bit of a key performance indicator, before it said there's an 8% success rate, we want there to be a 90% success rate. And after that, there's going to be a little bit of a risk with this, is that providing clients to the housing program, not every single client that comes in is accordingly to the standards of what we want, and so there could be any kind of malicious behavior. And we want to make sure mitigation to that is that providing we want proper training for the outreach employees. Just in conclusion, we want to look back at the values. We want transparency and we want affordable funding, and we were going to make sure that our recommendation provides this for the WCA. Thank you so much.
You have 5 minutes for questions and answers.
So I'm wondering, the campaign to pay for and have additional resources for the outreach staff will keep people safely housed in this new unit that the folks are, that the developer's going to build. I'm wondering if you've given any consideration to the affordable housing rates and what the developer is going to charge, or any consideration to whether or not women will be able to afford that in the first place.
So what we're hoping for is moving forward with this campaign, working alongside the developer, that we're working alongside from the beginning till the end, hoping we find a developer that believes in not just the property, but believes in what YWCA does. And that's why this 2-year recommendation plan gives you the opportunity to find the right developer that fits best with your organization. And also talking alongside more of the rent aspect of it, working alongside what, providing the developer what you currently charge for women in need, and working alongside them to come to a simple median, to something that you're both happy with.
Do you have projections, like within how many years we would place how many people, for example, or women and children, families?
We were trying to think of a certain success rate to have. Coming into this, it is not a new program, but there has been success in the past. So that's why we wanted to look back at our key performance indicator and give a realistic expectation of how many people can come in. We've seen currently that they have been at max capacity, so we wanted to bump that key performance indicator to 90%. We currently don't have a specific statistic as to how many people would come in and run through the program and become successful at it, but we were basing on that one performance indicator we've seen. Essentially basing our success on that. So.
Do you have any idea of what a standard or typical donation through a Facebook donate button is, and the demographic for each? Or you spoke about the youth and the use of social media.
Of course.
For youth donating, and what's the average donation through social media?
Well, I think what we're basically trying to base it off of, I don't know if I would say that the campaign is limited to youth. I think that since we're going to be talking about the women and children affected, that there's going to be lots of middle-aged and families who are touched by the campaign. So I would say that maybe some youth would be donating, but I think the majority of the funds that are generated would be from middle-aged families or individuals who can afford it. That's where I would think that the majority of the donations would come from.
Is that all for questions?
And that concludes our presentation.